I have a salary of 60,000 yuan and handed it all over to my biological mother to manage. As a result, our family has stir-fried cabbage with tofu for every single meal. My wife didn't even have money to buy sanitary pads. I complained to my wife that the meals were too terrible. My wife's eyes turned red as she lamented to me. Your mother only gives me 300 RMB a month for living expenses. Having these dishes to eat is already considered very good. Hearing that, I immediately blamed her in a loud voice. Mom said she gives you 30,000 a month. Did you take it all back to your parents' house? She raised her head, her eyes filled with utter despair. 30,000, I've never even seen it. At that very moment, I suddenly realized the whereabouts of this 60,000 yuan might be far more complicated than I imagined. I am Li Hao, with a monthly salary of 60,000. I handed all of it over to my mother, Liu Mai. She said young people spend money recklessly, so she would help us manage it together for the good of our small family. I believed that, and my wife Zhou Yue didn't object either. Coming home today, Zhao Yue had already set the food on the table. 2 dishes and a soup, a plate of sour stir-fried cabbage, a plate of mapo tofu, and a pot of seaweed egg drop soup. It was these dishes again. My eyebrows involuntarily furrowed. It had been half a month straight. Not a single trace of meat or fish could be seen on the table. I put down my briefcase and sat at the dining table. I was dead tired from work today. I picked up my chopsticks and shoveled a mouthful of rice. Hubby, have some. Zhou Yu scooped a bowl of soup for me and placed it by my hand. The soup was still warm, not scalding. She was always so thoughtful. But the flames of irritation inside my heart flared up inexplicably. I wasn't angry at her. But why make these bland dishes? There isn't even a little bit of meat. I blurted out my complaint, picking up a piece of cabbage to chew in my mouth. It was crunchy, but also really monotonous. The dining room light was very bright. I could see her shoulders trembling slightly. I grew a bit impatient. What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? It's nothing. Her voice was very soft, mixed with a stuffy nasal tone. Only now did I notice that the rims of her eyes were already red. What on earth is going on? If you don't want to cook, we can just hire a maid. My voice softened up a bit. Zhou Yu raised her head, a few tears rolling down without warning. Li Hao, she looked at me, her eyes containing complex emotions that I couldn't understand. There was grievance, exhaustion, and even a spark of despair. Your mother every month only gives me 300 RMB for living expenses. What I thought I had misheard. 300 yuan, she repeated it once more. Her voice not loud, but it was like a bomb exploding in my ears. It's not even enough money to buy white cabbage. I was stunned. 300 yuan, how could that be? My mother, Liu Mai, the person who constantly had the phrase, "Everything is for my son," hanging on her lips. How could she only give 300 yuan? That's impossible, I blurted out. Mom said she gives you 30,000 every month. I remember it very clearly. In the beginning, when I handed the salary card to my mother, the 3 of us were all present. My mother held Zhou Yue's hand and said clearly and distinctly, Xiao Hao's salary. Mom will keep it for the 2 of you. Each month, Mom will transfer 30,000 into Xiao Yue's card to take care of the household expenses. The rest, Mom will save for you 2. Later on, you'll change to a bigger house and have children. There will be plenty of places where you'll need money. At that time, Zhou Yu had also nodded. How could my mother lie to me? Zhou Yu looked at me, a miserable smile appearing on her lips. 30,000. She looked as if she had just heard an earth-shattering, mind-blowing joke. I've never even seen it. I stared at her intently, wanting to find a single trace of a lie on her face, but there was none, only endless sorrow. I suddenly remembered that Zhou Yu hadn't bought new clothes in what seemed like ages. The shoes. On her feet were still the pair from when we first got married. On her dressing table, there was only a bottle of Dabao moisturizer that was almost empty. Before, I always thought it was due to her frugal nature. Only now did I understand that it wasn't frugality. It was destitution. It was a destitution created by my own hands. My heart felt as if it were squeezed by an invisible hand, hurting so much that I couldn't breathe. I looked at the vegetarian food on the table, suddenly felt incredibly blinding. These vegetarian dishes over the past half-month, every single bite was like a slap to my face. Fury burned through me, along with a cold sensation of being deceived, instantly enveloping my entire body. I said, I'm going to call Mom right now. My fingernails were trembling, almost failing to press the unlock button. Don't call. I turned my head to look at her. She had already wiped away her tears, and in her eyes only a numb calmness remained. It's useless. Mom won't admit it anyway. Zhou Yu's words were like a bucket of cold water, poured from my head to my feet. I calmed down a bit. That's right with my mother's personality. How could she ever admit it? She would only say that Zhou Yue was instigating conflict. By then it would just be another chaotic screaming argument, and with me caught in the middle, I would probably end up choosing out of habit to believe my mother, just like countless times in the past. I slumped down onto the chair in frustration. The phone screen was still lit, displaying my mother's phone number, the number I used to trust completely. Tell me everything. I looked at Zhou Yue, my voice completely hoarse. Zhou Yue remained silent for a long time, as if recalling that sorrowful past. Starting from the second month after you handed the salary card to Mom, on the first of every month, Mom would show up on time, not making a bank transfer but giving me 300 RMB in cash. Mom said to get through the days one must calculate meticulously. Leaving 30,000 yuan in the card makes it easy to spend recklessly. Mom said she was teaching me how to be a good wife. Zhou Yu's voice was very calm. No resentment. No blame, as if she were telling someone else's story. But hearing it, my heart tightened with waves of pain. Every time she came, Mom would check the refrigerator and check the household expenses. If she saw meat, she would say I was squandering the family fortune. If she saw me buy new clothes, she would make cynical remarks, saying it isn't easy for you to make money, telling me not to just care about dressing myself up. So later on, I didn't buy any more. But meat also never appeared in the refrigerator again. I couldn't even imagine what kind of days she had been living through for the past 2 years, holding 300 RMB in a big city to maintain the decency of a household, while I, a husband with a salary of 60,000, was just like an idiot, knowing absolutely nothing about all of this. Then why didn't you tell me? My voice carried an uncontrollable trembling. Zhou Yu raised her eyes to look at me. That look. If I told you, would you believe me? If I told you, you would only think I was making trouble out of nothing, that I couldn't tolerate your mother, and that I was ruining the bond between you and your mother. I was left speechless because she was right. If it were 2 years ago, no, even right before today's meal, if she had said these things, my first reaction would definitely have been exactly that. I'm sorry, I lowered my head. These words were as light as a feather, yet so heavy that I couldn't even lift my head up. Zhou Yu shook her head, stood up, and walked into the bedroom. When she came out, in her hand was an extra notebook that was slightly worn. She placed the notebook down in front of me. I opened the first page. On it was elegant handwriting recording every single expense. February 1st received 300 RMB. Groceries. Chinese cabbage, 2.3 RMB tofu, 4 RMB eggs, 5.5 RMB. Total 11.8 RMB. Electricity, water, gas, 135 RMB. Bought medicine for sick child, 35 RMB. Remaining this month, 112 RMB. Every single item, every single entry, was as clear as a knife slicing into my heart. I flipped page by page, my hand trembling harder and harder. Each month's income was clearly written as 300 RMB. I even saw one page, recording bought sanitary pads 12.9 RMB, with a note in parentheses behind it, used a discount coupon, saved 3 RMB. The rims of my eyes instantly heated up. My wife, while I thought she was living a comfortable life, was actually pinching pennies over a 3 RMB discount. And me, I actually even complained that her cooking didn't taste good. I really am a complete bastard. I'm going to find her. I forcefully slammed the notebook shut and prepared to stand up. And then what? Zhou Yu held my hand back. After we had a huge fight, Mom would stubbornly deny everything, give you a harsh scolding. And in the end, you'd come back to advise me to be more magnanimous and bear with it a little. She looked at me calmly, Li Hao. I don't want to play a part in this kind of drama anymore. I was stunned. That's right. And then what? I had no proof. My mother could easily claim this notebook was forged by Zhou Yue. What did I have to confront her with? Then what should I do? For the first time in my life, I felt completely powerless. Zhou Yue pulled her hand back and spoke slowly. If you truly want to solve this problem, then don't alert the snake by striking the grass. I looked at her. There were no more tears in her eyes, only a heavy do-or-die calmness. The hardships of the past 2 years seemed to have forged this resilience right into her very bones. Starting tomorrow, everything goes on as usual. Just act like you know nothing. Whatever Mom says, just agree. But you need to get proof. I nodded vigorously. All right. Zhou Yu took the notebook from my hand, a flash of heartache flickering in her eyes, before turning into solid determination. I will go make a photocopy of this notebook, Li Hao. I want you to see with your own eyes where your 60,000 yuan salary actually went. The next day I went to work as usual, sitting at my desk with my mind tangled like a ball of yarn. Messages in the work group chat kept flashing non-stop, but I couldn't process a single word. My mind was entirely filled with that notebook, and entirely filled with Zhou Yue's despairing yet calm eyes. Just past 10 o'clock, my phone rang. On the screen, 2 words appeared, "Beloved Mom." I took a deep breath, pressed the answer button, and forced my voice to sound as normal as possible. "Hello, Mom, my son." Yes, my mother's voice was just as enthusiastic as always. "Are you at work? Mom isn't disturbing you, right?" "No, I just finished a meeting," I lied. "That's good then. Mom just wanted to ask how your work has been lately. Are you tired? Remember to take care of your health. Don't overexert yourself." These warm, caring words, which would have made me feel incredibly touched in the past, felt purely hypocritical and chilling to hear today. "It's just the usual, Mom. I'm not tired," I replied casually. "It's good that you're not tired. Just focus on working and making money out there with peace of mind. As for matters at home, Mom has already taken care of them for you. Guaranteed to keep everything perfectly organized for you. You and Xiao Yue, you see, really don't know how to budget and manage a household. Mom is doing this to save up money for you guys." I gripped my phone tightly, my knuckles turning white from the force. I desperately wanted to ask her over the phone where exactly this saved money was, and how she had been treating Zhou Yu all this time, but I forced myself to hold it in. Zhou Yu was right. I needed proof. Yes, yes, yes. "It's all thanks to you, Mom." I played along with her words. "Aren't you a good boy?" Liu Mai's voice sounded highly satisfied. "Oh, right, Mom needs to tell you something. Regarding your salary card a few days ago, Mom." Mom went to the bank to check and print the statement. The bank manager even praised Mom, saying Mom is excellent at financial management. My heart sank. Printed the statement. Why did she suddenly go print the bank statement? Oh, really? I forced my voice to remain steady, of course. "My son, this money of yours. Mom has spent all of it on important matters for you. Mom has kept a clear, itemized record of every single sum." I said nothing, silently listening to her put on an act. "Oh, right. Xiao Yue hasn't been nagging you about anything lately, has she?" She shifted the topic. It was here. This was the real focus of her phone call today. She was testing me. My brain started working at full capacity, nagging. The other end of the line went silent for a moment. Oh, what did she nag about? Liu Mai's voice betrayed a hint of vigilance. "She often says the money isn't enough to spend, and wants to buy some meat to improve our meals." I intentionally used a complaining tone, saying, "Mom, did you give her too little for living expenses? How about next month you give her a bit more?" I was kicking the ball right back to her. I wanted to see how she would react to this 30,000 yuan lie. What Liu Mai's voice instantly shot up 8 octaves, piercing my ears. "Not enough to spend. Mom gives her 30,000 every single month. What more does she want? My son, let Mom tell you, this wife of yours has a bottomless pit of greed, spending money like water. You must keep a very close eye on her. Don't let her sneakily funnel all the money back to support her parents' family, smearing reputations and turning black into white." She was so proficient at it that it made one's spine go cold. If I hadn't seen that notebook with my own eyes last night, I'm afraid I would have believed her words by now and started to suspect Zhou Yu. I felt a bone-chilling shiver running from my heels straight up to the top of my head. "Rest assured, my son, Mom hasn't touched a single cent of your money. It's all kept safely for you. But look, your younger brother Li Wei is about to get married, and he's still a bit short on the down payment. Your dad and I are worrying ourselves sick, yes. Aren't we just taking it from our own retirement savings to make up the difference for him? Mom is telling you this. Mom definitely hasn't touched your money." She brought up Li Wei and brought up the down payment. An extremely bad premonition welled up inside my heart. "Yes, Mom, I know. I'll talk to her." I hurriedly hung up the phone. I turned off my phone. I sat frozen for a full 5 minutes, then opened a banking app that I had almost never used before. My mother knew the password to this card, and I knew it too. I entered the password to log into the account. The balance was only 3,215 RMB. My heart continued to sink bit by bit to the very bottom. I tapped on the transaction details, scrolling down line by line. On the 5th of every month, there would be a salary of 60,000 yuan transferred in. Then on the 6th of every month, like clockwork, there would be an outgoing transfer of 57,000 RMB, the recipient Li Wei, my own younger brother. I continued to scroll down. There was another sum also on the 6th of every month. There would also be an outgoing transfer of 3,000 RMB, the recipient Liu Mai, who is my mother. From beginning to end, not a single cent was given to Zhou Yue. The so-called 30,000 yuan for living expenses was a blatant lie right from the start. And I, the pillar of this family, had been living like a total joke for the past 2 years. Returning home, the living room light was on. Zhouya sat on the sofa without turning on the TV. She was just quietly waiting for me. Seeing me walk in, she stood up. "You're back." I walked over to her, unable to utter a single word, and just handed her my phone. On the screen, it was still parked on the bank's transaction details page. Those blinding lines of transfer history were like needles piercing into my heart. Zhouya took the phone and lowered her gaze. She looked through it very carefully, scrolling page by page. The living room was terrifyingly quiet, with only the faint sound of the screen sliding. I didn't know what she was thinking right now. Was it fury? Was it sorrow? Or was it the numbness of having anticipated this all along? Finally, she finished looking. She turned off the screen, gently placed the phone on the coffee table, and then raised her head to look at me. But in her eyes, there were none of the emotions I had imagined, only a profound calmness. "Now you've seen it all right," I nodded, my throat choking with bitterness. "I'm sorry." Other than these words, I didn't know what else I could possibly say. The grievances she had to endure over the past 2 years were so extensive that not a single apology could ever make up for it. Zhouya shook her head again, Li Hao. "Saying sorry right now doesn't achieve anything. What we need to do is take back what belongs to us." I nodded solemnly. "Tell me, what should we do in this moment?" I handed all the initiative over to her, because in my heart I knew clearly that my understanding of my mother, Liu Mai, was nowhere near hers. My perception built over the past 25 years completely collapsed today. Zhouya walked over to the window, looking out at the night outside. "The bank statements are proof, but it's still not enough. She can say it was because you agreed to give the money to your brother, and can even say that you yourself told her the password for her to handle. With her personality, she will definitely say exactly that." Every single word hit the nail right on the head. My mother was indeed that kind of person. As long as she could deflect the blame, she would say absolutely anything. Then what should we do? I was getting a bit anxious. "We need a piece of evidence that leaves her with no room to deny it." Zhouyu turned around, her eyes burning with intensity as she looked at me. A piece of evidence recorded from her own mouth, admitting to this entire thing. An audio recording. I instantly understood her meaning. This time we have to make her tell us with her own mouth how she allocated this 60,000 yuan. I want her to state her lie about the 30,000 yuan a month herself, and then puncture it with our own hands. Looking at my wife before me, I suddenly felt a slight sense of unfamiliarity. A Zhouyu who was always gentle and quiet seemed to have grown a solid suit of armor overnight. But I knew this didn't happen in a single day. It was the torment and endurance, over more than 700 days and nights for 2 whole years, that had forged her calmness and resilience. At this moment, besides guilt in my heart, there was an added spark of admiration and heartache. "All right." I stepped forward, gently taking her cold hands in mine. "This time I'll listen to you. Let's settle this matter completely once and for all." There were 3 days left until the 1st of next month. During these 3 days, Yuk and I were both preparing for the upcoming showdown. Early the next morning, I used the excuse of an emergency at work to take half a day off. I didn't go to the company, but went to an electronics market to buy a voice recorder, the latest model. I also bought a hidden camera, an ultra-small one, disguised as a power bank. Double security was the only way to ensure zero slip-ups. When I returned home, Zhouyu was cleaning. She cleaned the house until it was completely spotless without a speck of dust, as if anticipating an important ritual. I showed her the gear. She carefully checked everything over once and nodded. The voice recorder pen was placed in the pen holder on the living room coffee table, and the power bank was put on the TV shelf facing straight at the sofa. She calmly laid out the layout, with every single detail thoroughly considered. We rehearsed it over and over again multiple times, simulating where my mother might sit after entering the door, what she might say, and how we should handle it. Zhouyu instructed me, "On that day, you don't need to overthink it intentionally. Just come home from work like normal. If you appear too stiff, she might suspect something instead. Just play the role of a husband who just found out the truth, furious and coming home to confront us. As for me, I'll continue to play the aggrieved daughter-in-law, who doesn't dare to loudly talk back. You are in charge of getting angry to trigger her emotions, while I am in charge of acting weak so she gets smug and arrogant enough to spill the truth." I looked at her, my heart tangled in 100 ways. She had calculated human nature so precisely. It was all forced out of her by my mother. "It's been hard on you." Yu shook her head, saying nothing. Time passed both really fast and yet really slow. Finally, the day that would decide our fate arrived. On the morning of this first, I sat at the office feeling extremely restless, frequently checking my phone. At 9:58, Yu sent a message, containing just one word arrived. I immediately asked my manager for leave, saying there was an emergency at home, then rushed right out of the company. I didn't drive straight home. I was waiting for the absolute best moment to walk in. About 20 minutes later, my mother Liu Mai's figure appeared. She was carrying a cheap, eco-friendly bag, bought at the market, walking with a light step into the apartment complex gate. I took a deep breath, started the car engine, and calculated the timing. From the moment she entered the door, to when she started acting high and mighty to lecture Yu, and then to when emotions peaked, it would take around 15 minutes. I had to time it perfectly to push the door open and walk in right then. I had to play the role of a son who accidentally stumbled upon all of this. The car was parked in the basement. I sat inside the car, watching the time on my phone tick second by second, my heart beating like a drum. This was the first time in my life confronting my own mother, and in this specific way at that. 15 minutes had passed. I adjusted my collar to make myself look exhausted from a long commute, then stepped out of the car and entered the elevator. The elevator doors opened. Standing at the apartment door, I could faintly hear the overbearing tone of my mother echoing out, "Giving you 300 RMB is highly regarding you already. How dare you tattle on me to Lee? How and complain it's too little. Let me tell you, Yu, the Lee family's money doesn't just blow in with the wind." I took out my keys, my hands trembling slightly. But the moment I inserted the key into the lock, my hand steadied and my gaze turned completely cold. The good show has begun. I pushed the door open and walked in. "Mom, what are you saying?" On the coffee table lay 3 red 100 RMB bills, looking incredibly glaring. Hearing my voice, Liu Mai visibly stiffened for a moment, the harshness and anger on her face. Didn't even have time to retract, making her look a bit ridiculous. "My son, why are you back at this hour?" But a flash of panic darted through her eyes. I forcefully threw my briefcase onto the entryway cabinet. "If I hadn't come back, how could I have heard these sincere words of yours? 300 RMB. Is this the 30,000 yuan in living expenses you talked about?" My voice was filled with suppressed rage. Liu Mai's expression changed instantly, but she quickly regained her composure, as expected of a veteran seasoned in the battlefield. "My son, you came back at just the right time. You need to properly manage this wife of yours." She pointed at Yu playing the victim while being the culprit. "Mom gives her 30,000 every month. How on earth did she spend it so that it was all gone in just a few days? This month she actually came to demand more from Mom. Mom got so angry that I just gave her 300 RMB first, wanting her to learn a lesson and learn how to be frugal. Who would have thought she'd actually go tattle to you? This kind of woman has such a wicked heart. She just wants to drive a wedge between us, mother and son." These words were spoken so smoothly without a single flaw. If I hadn't seen the bank statements, I'm afraid I really would have believed her, and would have even turned around to criticize Yu. I gave a cold laugh, Mom. "You say you give Yu 30,000 every month, of course?" Liu Mai puffed out her chest full of righteous confidence. "Would Mom lie to you? All right, Yu. Mom says she gives you 30,000 every month. Did you receive it?" Yu raised her head, with tear stains still on her face. She stole a glance at my mother, then shook her head, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. "No, I didn't. You're lying." Liu Mai instantly blew her top, pointing straight at Yu's face. "Scolding, you deceitful, lying creature. You ungrateful wretch. I treat you so well, that you actually dare to slander me in front of my son. I'll beat the lying tongue out of you saying that." She actually raised her hand, intending to slap Yu right across the face. Quick and sharp-eyed, I grabbed her wrist tightly. I let out a loud shout. Enough. Blown away by my intensity, Liu Mai was startled and stared at me blankly. "I'm asking you one more time." My voice was ice cold. "Is my salary of 60,000 every month transferred into your card?" She instinctively answered, "Yes, it is." "Do you only give Yu 300 yuan every month?" "No, I don't. I give 30,000. She was still quibbling. "Then where is the remaining 59,700 yuan?" I pressed forward step by step. "Where did the money go?" Liu Mai's gaze began to dodge Mom. "Naturally, Mom is saving it for you guys. It's for your own good, saving it." I burst out laughing, but the laughter didn't reach my eyes. "It's saved right into Li Wei's card, isn't it?" This sentence was like a clap of thunder. Liu Mai's face instantly turned deathly pale. How did you know?" she blurted out. The moment the words left her mouth, she realized she had slipped up and immediately covered her mouth. Inside the living room was a deathly silence. On the TV shelf, the hidden camera disguised as a power bank had its red light flashing. Inside the pen holder on the coffee table, that recording pen shaped like a fountain pen was still quietly operating. I looked at my mother's bloodless face. There wasn't a single shred of satisfaction in my heart, only endless sorrow. I let go of her hand and asked every single word clearly. In your heart, what exactly? Are I and Jo-yu to you? On my mother's face, usually so adept at putting on an act, a genuine panic appeared for the first time. She looked at me, her gaze a mix of terror, guilt, and a spark of humiliation turning into anger after being exposed. What do you mean, what exactly? She forced her voice higher to cover up her panic. You are my son, the one I went through painful labor to give birth to. She started playing the family card. This was the weapon she was best at. Everything Mom does. Is there a single thing that isn't for your own good? Isn't it for the good of this entire household? I let out a cold laugh. Hearing those two words come out of her mouth felt completely repulsive. In your heart, Mom. Does this household only consist of you, Dad, and Li Wei? What about me then? What about Jo-yu? Are we just tools for you to provide for Li Wei? Each of my questions was like a hammer blow, smashing hard against her heart. Her face turned pale. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? She finally couldn't keep her composure anymore, revealing her true colors as a shrew. Li Wei is your own biological brother. He's getting married and buying a house. What's wrong with you helping out a bit as his older brother? You make $60,000 a month. What's wrong with letting him spend a little? You're so narrow-minded you can't even tolerate your own brother. Money that I willingly give is called helping. I stared straight into her eyes, enunciating every word. But money that you secretly steal is called theft. The word theft completely drove her crazy. You rebellious child. She pointed straight at my face, shaking with rage. For the sake of an outsider, you actually dare to speak to your biological mother like this. Her spearhead turned toward Jo-yu again. This is all because of you jinx. From the day you set foot into this house, our family hasn't had a single day of peace. What kind of love potion did you feed my son? To make him abandon both his biological mother and his brother, huh? Her face contorted as she raised her hand again to strike Jo-yu. This time, Jo-yu didn't dodge. She just sat there quietly, looking at my mother with a cold gaze as if watching a clown. I grabbed my mother's wrist once more, squeezing so hard that she cried out in pain. Don't even think about it. My voice no longer had a shred of warmth. Starting today, this home no longer welcomes you. My mother was stunned. Perhaps she had never imagined that a son who had always been completely obedient like me could actually say such things. What did you say? Say that again, I said. Please get out. I hauled her by the arm, dragging her straight toward the door. She began to struggle, wailing and throwing a tantrum. Li Hao, you're crazy. You're kicking me out. I am your mother. I opened the door and pushed her outside without a hint of mercy. And one more thing, I stood at the threshold looking down at her. Over the past 2 years, return all the money you took from my salary card to me, not missing a single cent. Otherwise, we'll see each other in court. I pointed toward the TV shelf and the coffee table. Everything that happened here has already been recorded. My mother's wailing stopped instantly. She looked at the items in the living room in disbelief, her eyes completely filled with fear. I didn't give her any more time to react, and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. The whole world suddenly fell quiet. Leaning my back against the door, I slid down and sat on the floor. Jo-yu walked over and crouched down beside me. She reached out her arms and gently hugged me. It's over, she whispered in my ear. I buried my head in her shoulder, and tears finally overflowed. This wasn't weakness, but the only release for a man after burying the beliefs he held for the past 25 years with his own hands. We sat on the floor for a long time, until the sky outside the window gradually grew dark. I raised my head. She wiped away my tears and went to pour me a glass of warm water. Are you feeling better? Thank you. Thank you for what? Thank you for not giving up on me. If it weren't for her, perhaps I would have lived my entire life in this fake illusion of a loving mother and a filial son, just like a marionette, having my whole life manipulated by someone else, while still doing it willingly. Jo-yu smiled her smile, carrying a hint of relief. We are husband and wife. These few words held more power than any words of comfort. That's right, we are husband and wife, a unified team sharing both hardships and joys together. I stood up, pulling her up along with me. Let's check out our spoils of war. I walked over to the TV shelf, picked up the power bank, and then took the recording pen out of the pen holder. We connected the devices to the computer, Both the video and audio parts were completely intact. I opened the video. The picture was sharp and the audio was clear. My mother's face, contorted with rage and greed, was captured perfectly. Every sentence she uttered, every single word was recorded explicitly. I looked at the computer screen, my heart no longer feeling a single ripple. "How much money is it in total?" Zhou Yu asked. I took out my phone and opened the calculator. A monthly salary of 60,000 for 2 years is 24 months, making a total income of 1,440,000 RMB. Giving my mother 3,000 a month means she took 72,000 for herself and transferred 1,368,000 RMB to Li Wei. I looked at this string of numbers, feeling a bit suffocated. 1,368,000 RMB, this amount was enough to pay in full for a decent apartment in a second-tier city. Yet I had let my wife pinch pennies over a 3 RMB discount coupon. This money must be recovered. Zhou Yu's voice was very calm. She won't hand it over easily, and Li Wei certainly won't either. I know. Xu Yek nodded. I understood her point. That's why we can't just go after her. Mom is just the executor. The one who actually holds the money and enjoys it is your younger brother, Li Wei. You mean we should go confront him directly, right? Zhou Yu looked at me, her gaze resolute. We have to go tell him that his days of living in luxury are over. Mom has definitely tipped him off by now. They are probably scheming right at this moment on how to deal with us. We can't give them too much time. Tomorrow we will go look for him and talk face to face. This time I wouldn't be soft-hearted anymore. The apartment Li Wei was living in and the car he drove might all have been bought with my money. He was casually enjoying the life that originally belonged to me and Zhou Yue. It was time to make him spit it all out. I opened the map app and entered Li Wei's address. This was the address where at the last family gathering, my mother had proudly bragged about how successful my brother was for buying his own wedding house. Thinking back now, it was truly a ridiculous irony. Tomorrow I would personally show up at his door to reclaim everything that belonged to me. The next day was Sunday. Zhou Yu and I woke up very early. We didn't eat breakfast at home, as we usually did, but drove out to find the best Cantonese dim sum restaurant. We ordered a whole table full of food: shrimp dumplings siomai, chicken feet, and tripe, all items that Zhou Yue used to love, but hadn't touched for the past 2 years. After eating, we didn't go home. Instead, I drove straight to Li Wei's place slips. It was a newly built luxury apartment complex. Inside the elevator, I felt Zhou Yue's hand holding mine, squeezing slightly. I gripped her hand back. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." She smiled at me. "I'm not afraid." We walked up to the front door. I rang the doorbell, and it took quite a while before the door opened. Big brother, sister-in-law. "Why are you two here?" His eyes dodged a bit, not daring to look straight at me. It seemed Mom had already warned him. "Aren't you going to invite us in to sit down?" Li Wei's expression looked a bit ugly, but he still stepped aside to let us in. A woman wearing matching pajamas with him walked out of the bedroom. That was his fiancée. Seeing us, Wang Li also froze for a moment, before a polite smile instantly broke out on her face. "Who is it, honey?" "Oh, it's big brother and sister-in-law. Please have a seat." The living room was sumptuously decorated, obviously costing a fortune at first glance. I stood in the middle of the living room, swept my eyes around once, and then spoke coldly. Li Wei's expression grew tense. "I came here today for only one thing." "What is it, brother money?" Wang Li's expression changed instantly. She looked at Li Wei and then back at me. What money, big brother? Is there some misunderstanding?" I turned to her. "There is no misunderstanding. Over the past 2 years, my mother has taken money from my salary card, making a total transfer of 1,368,000 RMB to Li Wei. Yes, this money is mine, and now I want it back." Wang Li's smile froze right on her face. She looked at Li Wei in disbelief. "Is what he's saying true?" Li Wei's face turned as red as a pig's liver. He hemmed and hawed for a long time without squeezing out a single word. Finally, he threw caution to the wind and yelled, "So what if it is? Mom gave it to me. It's not like I stole or robbed anyone. You're my older brother. Isn't your money basically our family's money? What's the big deal if I used a little bit of it? As if you've done nothing wrong." "I'm not in the wrong." He craned his neck to argue. I nodded, then pulled my phone out of my pocket. I opened the audio file and pressed play. The piercing and guilty voice of my mother instantly echoed throughout the living room. "It's saved right into Li Wei's card, isn't it?" How did you know?" Li Wei's face turned deathly pale in a split second, while Wang Li's expression became even more dramatic. I turned off the recording and looked at them. Do I still need to pull out the bank transfer statements? For you two to look at. Li Wei completely deflated like a defeated fish. I looked at him and delivered the ultimatum 1 week. Return the 1,368,000 RMB to me, not missing a single cent. If I don't see the money in my card after 1 week, then this audio recording and the bank statements will be sent to 2 places. One is the court, and the other is your future in-law's house. My words were like a sledgehammer, shattering everything in front of Li Wei and Wang Li, and also completely smashing the fake prosperity they had built up using my money. Wang Li's face turned pale in an instant. She looked at me, then at Li Wei beside her, her gaze shifting from initial shock to raging thunder, skepticism, and finally a coldness and disgust that she didn't even bother to hide. I didn't say another word. The threat had been delivered. I pulled Zhou Yue's hand, turned around, and walked away. Li Wei didn't stop us, and neither did Wang Li. They were like 2 statues with their souls sucked dry, frozen right on the spot. From behind came a loud thud. It was the sound of the front door being slammed shut by us. Walking into the elevator, inside the enclosed space, I could clearly hear my own breathing and Zhou Yue's. The reflection on the elevator mirror showed that our faces were both very calm, yet carrying the exhaustion left in the wake of a storm. Let's go home. Zhu Yit nodded, leaning her head against my shoulder. I knew the real storm had only just begun. Behind that closed door over there, another war had already erupted. 1,368,000 RMB. Wang Li's voice shrieked like fingernails scratching across glass. Li Wei, you better explain this to me clearly. What on earth is going on here? Li Wei hung his head low, not daring to look at her. Well, Mom told me that Big Brother's money was going to be saved anyway. Slap. A crisp slap rang out. Wang Li's hand was trembling slightly. Your mom. If your mom egged you on to steal, would you go steal too? Holding his face, Li Wei finally lost his mind too. What's wrong with me spending a bit of my brother's money? Humph, a bit of money. Over 1 million RMB is what you call a bit of money. Li Wei, do you even know what this means? She pointed at this sumptuously decorated apartment. This means where we are standing right now is stolen goods. The car we bought is stolen goods. Even the diamond ring on my hand is stolen goods. The man I, Wang Li, want to marry is a man with ambition, not a parasite, who clings on to suck his older brother's blood just to get by. Every single word stabbed right into his heart. Li Wei's face turned from red to white, and then from white to a ghastly pale. You. How can you talk about me like that? Am I wrong? Wang Li looked at him coldly. Did you think I didn't know? Your monthly salary is only 8,000 RMB. How could you possibly afford the down payment and the renovation costs? I always thought it was your parents' savings. Who would have thought your whole family colluded to steal? She took a deep breath, with nothing left in her eyes but absolute coldness. Let me tell you, Li Wei, I don't care what method you use. If you can't return this money within 1 week, we are breaking up immediately and canceling the wedding. I, Wang Li, cannot bear this kind of humiliation. Having said that, she turned around, went into the bedroom, and slammed the door shut. In the living room, only one person was left. Li Wei stood there completely dazed. His cheek burned with pain, but his heart ached even more. He knew Wang Li meant exactly what she said. If he couldn't return the money, this wedding would be completely ruined. He pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling uncontrollably as he called his only life-saving straw, the very person who had pushed him into the abyss, yet also the only one who could pull him back out. The moment the call connected, he burst into tears. Mom, something went wrong. When my mother received the call, she was also sitting restlessly at home. She had been waiting for news from Li Wei all afternoon. But according to her way of thinking, what I did yesterday was just a momentary impulse. Once I calmed down, biological blood ties would naturally conquer all. She had even already thought of what to say. As long as I was willing to back down, she would conveniently use that chance to give herself a way out, and everyone would still be one family. As for the money matters later on, they could just slowly make it up to Zhou Yue over time. What's wrong? What are you crying for, you useless thing? She barked loudly, purely to mask the panic in her heart. On the other end of the line, Li Wei told everything that had just happened, adding oil to the fire as he went over it once, putting heavy emphasis on my absolute cold-heartedness and Wang Li's utter determination. The house down payment, the renovation costs, and even the car money. It's all Big Brother's money. If he takes this to court, won't all of these things be confiscated? Then I'll end up completely empty-handed. Li Wei's sheer terror was vividly transmitted through the phone line, and Lu Mai's heart sank bit by bit. The thing she feared most had actually happened. This son who had always been completely submissive to her had truly torn off his mask this time. What are you panicking for? The sky isn't falling. She racked her brains to find a way to counter. Return the money, no way. That 1 million plus RMB had already turned into a house and a car. Turning into Li Wei's social status, how could they spit it back out? Since the soft approach didn't work, she could only use hard tactics. Don't rush and don't go looking for Wang Li just yet. Liu Mai lowered her voice to speak to the other end of the line. Don't worry about this matter anymore. Let Mom handle it. What kind of person your brother is, Mom knows best. He's a stubborn kid who responds to sweet talk but gets defensive under pressure. But he has a fatal weakness, and that is filial piety. He values this family. Mom, what do you mean by that? The corner of Liu Mai's mouth curled into a sinister smile. Doesn't he want to burn bridges with us? Isn't he abandoning both his birth mother and biological brother for the sake of an outsider? Fine, Mom will show him what kind of end comes with abandoning this family. I will let all our relatives know just how rebellious and unfilial of a son he is. I'll make it so he can't even lift his head up within this family clan. This was pure moral kidnapping, using family ties and morality to weave a net that could imprison me until death and force me to bow my head and concede. Mom, will that really be okay? Li Wei was still a bit hesitant. Whether it works or not, we'll only know after trying. Just you wait. Right now, Mom is going to call your oldest uncle your second aunt, and your grandparents. Tomorrow, we will hold a family meeting right at your grandfather's house. I refuse to believe that he'd still dare to be this arrogant in front of all his elders. Hanging up the phone, Liu Mai didn't hesitate for a single second, immediately opening her contacts and dialing the first number. The moment the call connected, her voice instantly became flooded with deep grief and grievance. Hello, big brother. Yes, it's me, Liu Mai. Eldest brother, you have to stand up for me. My son Li Hao, he's trying to drive me to my grave. An elaborately orchestrated trial aimed at me was kicked off just like that. But I was still completely in the dark about all of this. That evening, Zhou Yue and I had just finished dinner when my phone rang with an unfamiliar landline number. I picked up, hello, is this little Hao? On the other end of the line came an old but highly authoritative voice. Grandfather, I was a little surprised. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, come over to my place. Grandfather's tone carried an order that couldn't be refused. Bring Zhou Yi along with you too. Your mother and your younger brother will also be coming. All the elders in this family will be present. This matter between you brothers, just lay it out clearly in front of everyone. Having said his piece, he hung up the phone. I held the phone standing frozen on the spot. I looked at Zhou Yue. Her gaze was still as calm as water. Clearly, she had also guessed that this was a trap of a dinner party. She gently uttered those exact words, a Hongmen banquet. The next morning at 9:30, Zhou Yue and I arrived at grandfather's house. It was an old apartment complex, holding all of my childhood memories, a place that used to be the warmest harbor in my heart. But today, I felt as though I were walking onto an execution ground. Along the way, Zhou Yue was very quiet, not a single emotion showing on her delicate face. But when I held her hand, I could feel a firm strength transmitted from her palm. Don't be afraid, she comforted me instead. The ones who should be afraid are not us. We walked up the stairs side by side. The front door was left slightly ajar, and from inside echoed lowered voices. Along with my mother's intermittent sobbing, I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and walked into a living room packed with people. Grandfather and grandmother sat in the center seats, their expressions stern. My oldest uncle's second aunt, and several other relatives whose relations I couldn't quite recall, sat scattered in 2 rows on the sofas. The scene looked exactly like a tribunal court. As for my mother, Liu Mai and Li Wei, they were sitting on small stools. My mother's eyes were swollen from crying, holding a tissue to wipe away her tears. Li Wei hung his head low, looking completely dejected and drained. Seeing us walk in, all talking ceased instantly. Over a dozen pairs of eyes shot toward us simultaneously, as if we were the sinners, who had just committed a heinous crime. So you've arrived. Grandfather tapped the walking stick in his hand, making a dull, heavy thud. He pointed to the center of the living room, where 2 chairs had been intentionally placed for us, facing everyone else, just like 2 criminals waiting to be sentenced. Zhou Yue and I looked at each other and sat down calmly. Now that everyone is here, Grandfather swept his eyes around the room and slowly spoke. I called everyone here today for nothing else but the matter regarding these 2 brothers. He looked at me, then at Li Wei, little Hao. He fixed his gaze on my face. Your mother said you want to cut ties with your brother, and even threatened to sue him in court. She said she worked hard for this family, And your brother only spent a little bit of money, yet you can't even tolerate him. She also said, all of this is because Zhou Yue has been whispering in your ear, driving a wedge between you two. Is this true? His voice wasn't loud, but every word carried 1,000 pounds of weight. This was an outright interrogation. Before I could even open my mouth, my mother's crying rang out right on cue. Dad, don't ask him anymore. She wailed until her voice cracked. It's all my fault. It's because I'm useless. I shouldn't have thought about saving money for my son, and I shouldn't have helped my youngest child. I raised a viper in my bosom. I worked so hard to raise him. Yet now, for the sake of an outsider, he wants to throw his own birth mother into prison. While crying, she glared venomously at Zhou Yue. Little Hao, how could you speak to your mother like that? Second aunt was the first to speak up and scold me. We're all family. What can't be resolved by sitting down and talking it out? Why must you make a scene and take each other to court? Oldest uncle also frowned. What's wrong with your brother using a little bit of your money? It's not like he's an outsider. Blood is thicker than water. But from what I see, you've really forgotten your mother once you got a wife. Every piece of criticism was like a blade launched at me. They didn't care about the truth at all. They only believed the one-sided story of the victim playing mother of mine. In their eyes, the hierarchy of family and blood ties meant that as the oldest brother, I had to help my brother unconditionally. As the son, I had to be unfilially obedient to my mother unconditionally, while Zhou Yue would always be an outsider. Li Wei kept his head hung low, his shoulders trembling slightly as if he were deeply remorseful. But from his eyes that occasionally peeked up, I caught a flash of smugness instead. I caught another flash of smugness. This was their master plan, using clan pressure to force me into submission. When everyone finished talking, they all waited for my remorseful apology. Grandfather looked at me, tapped his cane again, and said, Little Hao, you heard what everyone just said? Now let me ask you, are your mother and your younger brother actually your family or not? Are you willing to respect my authority and the authority of our ancestors to let this matter go? He stared intently at me, his eyes carrying an absolute authority that brooked no defiance. Hand over the things you're holding, whether it's audio recordings or bank statements, and delete them all in front of everyone. Then apologize to your mother and your brother. From now on, we will still be one family. I looked at grandfather's stern face. His words were like an imperial edict, giving me no room to argue, only the option to obey. The atmosphere in this living room was so heavy it felt suffocating. Everyone's eyes were locked onto me. They were like a flock of vultures waiting for me to lower my head, letting them tear my pride to shreds. My mother's wailing gradually subsided, turning into smug whimpers. Li Wei raised his head slightly too, a faint smirk appearing on the corner of his mouth. They had won, or at least they thought they had. Amid that dead silence, I suddenly burst out laughing. Grandfather's eyebrows furrowed deeply into a frown. What are you laughing at? His voice was clearly displeased. I didn't answer him, but slowly stood up. Zhou Yu stood up with me, stepping right next to me, to stand shoulder to shoulder. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Then in front of everyone, I pressed the play button. A piercing, harsh, and incredibly familiar female voice instantly echoed across the living room. Giving you 300 RMB means I already think highly of you. How dare you complain to Li Hao about it being too little? Let me tell you, Zhou Yue, our Li family's money, doesn't just grow on trees. The living room instantly became dead silent. My mother's face went completely pale in a flash. She stared at the phone in my hand in total disbelief, as if she had just seen a ghost. The recording continued playing. It was my own voice questioning her in anger. 300 RMB. Is this the 30,000 RMB allowance you claimed you gave her mom? Next was my mother's confident excuse. I give her 30,000 RMB every single month. Who knows how she spends it to blow through it all in a few days? In the recording, my voice pushed her cornered step by step. Then where is the remaining 29,700 RMB? Where did the money go? I of course saved it for you guys. It's all for your own good. Saved it. It's saved right into Li Wei's card, isn't it? The most critical moment had arrived. Everyone held their breath. Then they heard a voice that was guilty to the absolute core. How do you know? This blurted out counter question was more powerful than any excuse. It was concrete evidence. Li Wei's face instantly drained of all color. He went completely limp, slumping hard into his chair. My mother's entire body was shaking, her lips stammering without being able to utter a single word. Once the recording finished, I turned off the phone screen and put it back into my pocket. I didn't say anything, only using a cold gaze, to slowly sweep across every person sitting here. Finally, my eyes rested on grandfather. His hands were gripping his cane so tightly that blue veins popped out. He opened his mouth but couldn't get a single word out after all. The fairness and authority of the entire clan, standing before this brief audio recording, had been smashed to pieces. The living room that was loud and chaotic moments ago was now so quiet that you could hear each other's heartbeats. Not a single person dared to speak, nor did anyone know what to say anymore. The truth was like a brutal slap delivered straight to everyone's faces, stinging with pain. My mother suddenly leaped up from her stool. She looked completely hysterical, with disheveled hair and a hideous expression. She didn't look at me, nor did she look at the relatives. She glared intensely at Zhou Yue, her eyes looking as though she wanted to swallow her alive. "It's you. It's all because of you, you bitch." She shrieked and lunged toward Zhou Yue. "You plotted against me. You set a trap to ruin me. I'll beat you to death, you vixen who ruined our family." I was already on guard, instantly taking a step forward to shield Zhou Yue. I firmly caught my mother's swinging arm and shoved it back hard. She stumbled back a few steps and fell flat onto the ground. "Enough things have already come to this, and you still want to blame someone else, Mom." My mother sat flat on the floor and began to wail miserably. This time it wasn't an act, but a total psychological breakdown and pure madness. I have no face left to live anyway. I might as well just die so I don't have to look at this. She slapped her hands on the floor, rolling around and throwing a tantrum. I worked hard my entire life for this family. What did I do wrong? Li Wei is your younger brother. Couldn't you give him a little boost? You are so heartless. Do you absolutely have to drive your own birth mother to death before you're satisfied? She started playing the family card again, conspiring to use morality to shackle me. Too bad it was already way too late. I didn't bother to pay any attention to her, but turned to the old man sitting in the center seat. "Now, do you still think I should apologize, grandfather?" Grandfather's face turned from green to white. He slammed his cane heavily onto the floor, making a sharp, loud sound. Outrageous. Absolutely scandalous. It was indeed absolutely scandalous. But his rage at this moment was no longer directed at me, but at Liu Mai sitting on the floor, and Li Wei who sat beside her with his soul practically departed, his face pale. "Do you think you haven't embarrassed us enough, and you too?" Li Wei. Grandfather's cane pointed straight at my brother's face. "How dare you even take your older brother's money? Did you feed all your years of education to the dogs? This money must be paid back." Grandfather finally delivered his verdict. Li Wei's body shuddered slightly, and my mother's wailing also suddenly ceased. "Dad, we can't pay it back." She screamed that money was all spent to buy the house and the car. What are we supposed to pay it back with? Grandfather's stance was resolute. Sell the house, sell the car. In short, this money must be paid back. I witnessed this ridiculous farce without feeling any sense of satisfaction in my heart. What I wanted was never grandfather's version of justice. What I wanted was a clean break and total liberation. "No need," I said coldly. Everyone looked toward me. "Whether he pays this money back or not has nothing to do with any of you anymore. This is between me and him. I will let the law handle it." I paused for a moment, my eyes sweeping across every single person present there, and then I enunciated every single word. "I am officially declaring that from this day forward, Zhou Yu and I will no longer have any relationship with any of you. Grandparents, uncles, aunts, all these titles end today. From now on, we are just strangers." Having said that, I didn't care to look at anyone's expression anymore. I took Zhou Yue's hand. "Let's go." We turned around and walked out the door. Behind us came grandfather's furious roar. You rebellious son, you're going to cut ties with the entire clan." And also my mother's desperate shrill cry. "Liha, you can't leave. If you leave, what am I supposed to do?" I didn't turn back at all. Holding Zhou Yue's hand, I took each step with absolute determination. I pushed that heavy wooden door open. Outside, the brilliant sunshine poured over us, making Zhou Yu and me feel both warm and free. On the way back home, neither Zhou Yu nor I said anything, but our tightly intertwined hands communicated each other's mood. It wasn't sadness, but the relief of throwing off a 1,000-pound burden, the ultimate freedom after breaking all shackles. Returning to our own home, this was the very first time this house truly belonged to just the two of us. I closed the door, shutting out all the noise from the outside world. Zhou Yu walked over to the window and drew all the curtains wide open. The sunlight rushed in, flooding the entire living room. She looked at me, her eyes shining like the stars. "Li Hao, I want to eat hot pot, sure." I smiled and nodded. "Let's go buy the groceries right now." Together we went to the big supermarket downstairs. Since we got married, this was the first time we were this relaxed, going to the supermarket together like a normal married couple, pushing the shopping cart around amid rows of fully stocked shelves. I had a feeling that felt so surreal. Zhou Yu's eyes twinkled. She was like a child who had never seen the world before, looking at everything with absolute novelty. She picked up a box of premium marbled beef, looked at the price, and out of habit was about to put it back down. I took it from her hand and tossed it straight into the shopping cart. From now on, whatever you want to eat, we will buy it. We will never have to look at the price tag again. Zhou Yu's eyes suddenly welled up with tears. She didn't say anything, only nodding her head vigorously. That day we bought a lot of things. Fresh beef, tripe, crunchy pork aorta, hand-pounded shrimp paste, along with all kinds of mushrooms and vegetables. Arriving back home, we both got busy in the kitchen. She washed the vegetables while I sliced the meat. We chatted away talking about all kinds of random everyday things. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of food, along with a warm flavor called family. The broth on the stove quickly came to a rolling boil, the layer of chili oil bubbling as a rich fragrance wafted out. We sat in front of the dining table looking at this steaming hot pot as if we wanted to take all the grievances and coldness of the past 2 years and dissolve them completely into this boiling hot pot. I picked up a slice of beef, dipped it into the pot for about 7 to 8 seconds, then placed it into Zhou Yu's bowl for her to taste. She picked it up, blew on it gently, cautiously, put it into her mouth, and then her tears fell without warning, dripping straight into her dipping sauce bowl. "What's wrong? Is it not good?" I panicked a little. She shook her head, crying and laughing at the same time. "No," she choked out. "It's because it's way too delicious. I just feel like I've waited for this day for way too long." I reached out to wipe the tears from her cheek. "I'm sorry. In the future, I will never make you wait again. Our beautiful days are just beginning." Zhou Yu and I looked at each other and smiled. The phone in my pants pocket buzzed. I pulled it out to check. It was a bank notification message. "Dear customer, your account ending in 1234 has just received 200,000 RMB. Sender Li Wei." He had started paying it back. It looked like the pressure Wang Li put on him was much more effective than the pressure from the entire clan or from me. I put my phone away. Not telling Zhou Yu about it. Just let this beautiful moment last a little bit longer. We ate this hot pot dinner for a very long time. From dusk until night fell. We wiped it completely clean without leaving a single scrap of food. This was the most delicious meal of my entire life, because I knew what we were eating wasn't hot pot, but a rebirth. The peaceful days only lasted for less than a week. Those were the days that since Zhou Yu and I got married, we felt most like a real married couple. I handed my salary card back into her hands and changed the password to her birthday. From now on, the power to manage the household finances belonged solely to her and her alone. She held that card and cried for a very long time. Li Wei's money continued to be transferred over in succession. He sent me a text message, begging me to give him a few more days, saying he was already putting the house up for sale. I only replied with 2 exact words: "Hurry up." I thought everything would just go. Accordingly resolved, through the proper tracks of the law and money, and slowly reach its conclusion. But I had underestimated my mother far too much. A woman stripped of her power of control and exposed in all her lies. Her retaliation would be just like a fatal and ice-cold venomous snake. That afternoon I was in a meeting for an important project. My phone, which was on vibrate, suddenly buzzed gently. It was a text message from my colleague, Xiao Zhang. "Brother Hao, come down quickly. Your mother is making a huge scene in the first-floor lobby, demanding to see you." My heart suddenly sank. I said a quick sorry to the department head, then hurriedly walked out of the meeting room. I took the elevator straight down to the first floor. The very instant the elevator doors opened, the chaotic noise and wailing immediately rushed into my ears. And right in the center of the crowd, my mother was sitting flat on the cold granite floor. Her hair was completely disheveled, and her clothes were a total mess, with 2 clear tear streaks stained on her face, slapping her thighs and wailing tragically. The son I painstakingly raised to adulthood now wants to drive me to my death. He makes 60,000 RMB a month, yet he gives every single cent to a vixen. That woman doesn't give us old couple a single penny, and even wants to steal my son away. Now he won't even recognize his own birth mother, and wants to kick me out of the house. The people around were pointing and whispering excitedly, their gazes filled with deep sympathy. But that sympathy was all for her. What was shot toward me was pure disgust and judgment. I felt all the blood in my body rush straight up to my brain. This was my own mother to get what she wanted. She could destroy my career without even blinking, ruining my entire life. I parted the crowd and walked up to her. Mom, this is a company, not a place for you to make a scene. Seeing me appear, she cried even harder. You finally decided to show up, you unfilial brat. She thrashed around, trying to crawl forward to grab my legs, playing her act to the very end. If you don't give me an explanation today, I'll just die right here in front of you. I didn't pay any attention to her performance. Turning around to speak to the security captain who was running over. Captain Wong, please escort this lady outside for me. If she refuses to cooperate, just call the police. Right away. Report to the police that someone is disrupting public order here, severely affecting the normal operations of our company. My words left everyone completely stunned, including Liu Mai sitting on the floor. She never expected that I would be this cold and heartless. The security guards looked at me with some hesitation, then looked back at her. What are you still standing there for? My voice carried a hint of stern authority. Do as I said. The security guards hesitated no longer, instantly grabbing Liu Mai by her arms from both sides. What do you think you're doing? Let me go, I am his mother, Li Hao. You will die a horrible death. Karma will get you. I looked at her expressionlessly, as she was dragged out of the company gates by the two guards. The lobby restored its quietness, but everyone's gazes were still like spotlights, pointing straight at me. I knew this storm was only just beginning. My career, and even my entire life, had been shrouded in a thick layer of fog because of this ridiculous farce of my mother's. After my mother was dragged outside, the atmosphere in the lobby became incredibly bizarre. My colleagues' looks toward me were highly complex, some sympathetic, some curious, but mostly distant. No one wanted to get too close to an unfilial person. The rumors spread like a virus, circulating at breakneck speed through every corner of the company. The project manager called me into his office. He didn't criticize me, only sighing, Li Hao, you should handle your family matters properly. The company is a place that judges work performance, but it also heavily values a person's character. I don't hope this matter affects you, or do I want it to affect our entire team. His words were very tactful, but I understood it was a final warning. If I didn't handle this matter well, my future at this company would be over. I nodded to him. Don't worry, boss. I guarantee there won't be a next time. Walking out of the office, I felt an unprecedented amount of immense pressure. This move of my mother's, pulling the rug out from under my feet, had truly struck my fatal weakness. She wanted to cut off my financial lifeblood. She wanted to leave me completely isolated. She wanted to push me to the absolute brink, so that in the end I would have no choice but to crawl back to her side and continue being a puppet under her control. I sat at my desk, rubbing the bridge of my nose in exhaustion. The phone buzzed again. I picked it up to check. It was a text from Zhou Yue. Your mom just called me. My heart skipped a beat. I immediately called Zhou Yu back. What did she say on the other end? Zhou Yu's voice was very calm, but within that calmness was a hint of suppressed trembling. She cussed me out for a bit, calling me shameless, and saying I seduced you and wasn't filial to my in-laws, saying that she also called my mom Mora, crying and claiming that we wanted to drive them to their graves. She demanded that I immediately divorce you and pack my bags back home so I wouldn't bring shame upon us out in society. My fists clenched tightly. My mother was truly out of her mind. After making a scene at my company, she immediately turned around to harass my wife's family. She wanted to push both of us into a dead end. So what did you say to her? My voice went a bit hoarse. I already explained everything to my mom. Zhou Yu's voice gradually became firmer. I told my mom the whole truth. I told her that if she didn't believe me, I could send her the audio recording and bank statements to check. I also said, Li Hao is my husband. No matter what happens, I will always stand by his side. Finally, I warned her that if she kept believing that woman's one-sided story and came to interrogate me, then we shouldn't contact each other anymore in the future. Hearing Zhou Yue's words, my eyes grew a bit hot. At a time when I was misunderstood by the whole world, she was the only one who chose to believe me without a single shred of hesitation. I'm sorry for making you suffer through such grievances. We're husband and wife, don't say that anymore. Zhou Yue paused for a moment, then continued. Tomorrow my parents are coming up here. They want to meet in person, to hear us explain everything clearly, and they also want to see that evidence with their own eyes. I agreed immediately. That was only natural. I absolutely had to give her parents an explanation. I looked at the bustling traffic outside the window, my heart a wave of absolute coldness. My mother, Liu Mai, had completely torn off all disguises. She was using the most vicious method to declare war on me. She thought that by doing this she could crush us. but she was dead wrong. The more hysterical she became, the further she pushed me away. I couldn't lose this war for Zhou Yue's sake, and for my own. The next day, Zhou Yue's parents rushed up here from Lin City. The old couple arrived travel-worn and exhausted, deep worry and anxiety written all over their faces. I personally went to the bus station to pick them up and bring them home. Juliet had already brewed tea and was waiting for them. The moment she called out to them, her eyes turned red. My mother-in-law grabbed her daughter's hand, examining her closely, as if trying to see if she had truly suffered any mistreatment. I didn't make too many excuses. I simply took my phone, along with that small notebook, and placed them on the coffee table. Mom, Dad, please look at this first. I played the complete audio recording and also opened the notebook that detailed every single 300 RMB expense. My father-in-law put on his reading glasses and picked up the notebook, while my mother-in-law leaned close to the phone, listening to the conversation inside. The entire living room was filled only with my mother's shrill, harsh voice from the recording, and the rustling sound of pages being turned by my father-in-law. The expressions of Zhou Yue's parents changed bit by bit along with the content of the recording, shifting from initial suspicion to shock and then total disbelief. Finally, when they heard my mother admit with her own mouth that she had transferred all the money to Li Wei, my father-in-law's hand froze on the notebook, shaking violently from sheer anger. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law's face was filled with absolute heartache. She hugged Zhou Yue tightly, her tears instantly spilling over. My silly daughter, you suffered such immense grievances, so why didn't you say a single word to us back home? Zhou Yue buried her face in her mother's chest, and the tears she had held back for so long finally broke through the dam. The recording finished playing, and the truth was laid bare. My father-in-law took off his glasses and let out a very long sigh. He looked at me, the hostility in his eyes completely gone, leaving only guilt and heartache. Little how your mother and I blamed you wrongly. This matter has really been hard on you. I shook my head. Dad, the one who should say sorry is me. I'm the one who didn't take good care of Zhou Yue, making her suffer so much pain. The misunderstanding was cleared up, and the attitude of Zhou Yue's parents completely shifted. They didn't mention divorce anymore, but instead started standing in the same trench with us. That family is truly way too much. My father-in-law slammed the table with a loud thud, unforgivable. This money must be demanded back, not a single cent less. And that old woman, too. Didn't she go to your company to make a scene? Going around spreading rumors and smearing you two's reputation? We can't just let this slide. Right at that moment, my phone rang with an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, but still picked up. Hello. May I ask if this is Mr. Li Hao on the other end? Came a young woman's voice, calm but seemingly in a hurry. I am Wang Li. She paused for a second. Li Wei's fiancé. I need to meet you for a bit right now. Wang Li and I agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop. She looked a lot more haggard compared to our last meeting, but her eyes were incredibly resolute. I came here today because I want to make a deal with you. She went straight to the point. What deal? I know you need evidence right now. Not just evidence to get your money back, but also evidence to prove your mother's true character. I have something that can help you. Having said that, she pulled her phone out of her bag and opened a photo. In the photo was an old hardcover notebook, with 4 words written on it, the family affection ledger. What is this? I asked, furrowing my brows. This is your mother's prized treasure. The corner of Wang Li's mouth curled into a sarcastic smirk. Ever since your younger brother started college, every single cent your mother gave him was recorded in this notebook, including these past 2 years. The money she withdrew from your salary card to buy the house, buy the car, and the renovation money for Li Wei. Every single item is recorded meticulously. She said this is all her love for her son, and she wants him to remember it for the rest of his life. My heart suddenly tightened. I never expected my mother to have such a thing. This was indeed the most direct and fatal piece of evidence. How did you get this? I took photos of it secretly, Wang Li said bluntly. A few days ago, Li Wei got drunk. He cried while talking about how much his mom loves him, how much pain she went through, and then brought this notebook out for me to see. I already grew suspicious back then. I looked at her, instantly understanding her motive. What is your condition? It's very simple. Wang Li looked at me, emphasizing every word. When you demand back that sum of 1,368,000 RMB, you must sign an agreement, waiving the right to pursue any joint liability against me. Your brother and I are over. I don't want my life to be dragged into the mud by your family. She truly was a smart and sufficiently ruthless woman. She was clearing a retreat path for herself. Fine, I agree. Just agreeing isn't enough. This notebook has been locked in the bedroom safe by your mother. I can help you get out, but I need you to cooperate. Tonight happens to be the absolute best opportunity. Wang Li's plan was incredibly bold yet airtight. Every Wednesday evening, your parents both go to the neighborhood recreation room to play mahjong. They leave at 8 o'clock and don't come back until 11:30. We will have 3.5 hours. I looked at her. This woman's coldness was a bit terrifying. How do you know all this so clearly? I've known Li Wei for 2 years, and I've been to their house countless times. There wasn't a single shred of expression on Wang Li's face. I know their daily habits better than you do. She was telling the absolute truth. These past 2 years, the number of times I went home could be counted on one hand. The door lock is an old model. I have a way to open it without leaving any trace. The important part is the safe. I frowned. Do you know the password? I know a flash of disdain flared up in Wang Li's eyes. When Li Wei was drunk, he brought that up to brag to me. It's your mother's birthday, combined with his making an 8-digit number. He said it's the affection password of their mother-son bond that can never be broken. Affection password. Hearing these 4 words, I only found it incredibly ironic. Using it to lock up the money stolen from me? Today is Wednesday. Wang Li looked at me, giving her final piece of information. Whether you show up or not, decide for yourself. This is our only chance. Once they let their guard up, you might never get this notebook for the rest of your life. I didn't hesitate at all. Deal. At 7:30 p.m. Zhou Yuk and my father-in-law drove together to my parents' apartment complex. My mother-in-law stayed back at the house saying her heart wasn't well, and she couldn't handle this kind of excitement. My father-in-law came along to give us extra courage, and also to act as backup outside. Right at 8 o'clock. We saw my parents from afar happily talking and laughing, walking out of the building's hallway and heading toward the mahjong room. Wang Li approached from a side path and nodded to us. Let's go, the 4 of us. Acted exactly like special agents in a movie. The atmosphere was tense to the absolute extreme. Wang Li took the lead, skillfully avoiding the camera blind spots. We successfully arrived in front of the familiar door. Wang Li pulled a small toolkit from her bag. I didn't know what it was, only seeing her fiddle with the lock for less than a minute. Suddenly, a soft click was heard, and the door opened. Inside the dark room, Wang Li turned on her phone flashlight and whispered, "The safe is inside the master bedroom wardrobe." We treaded lightly, stepping into my mother's bedroom, a place where from childhood to adulthood I had rarely set foot. Wang Li pulled open the wardrobe door. Underneath a pile of clothes, a gray safe was revealed. My heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. Wang Li crouched down and began typing the passcode, her fingers dancing nimbly in the dark. Beep, 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 the final digit was pressed, and the safe made a crisp unlocking sound. She pulled that heavy iron door open. There were no traps inside, only some property deeds, savings books, and jewelry, along with an object resting quietly right on top, a dark brown hardcover notebook. The family affection ledger. Wang Li took it out and handed it to me. I took the notebook. It was very heavy, as heavy as a boulder that had pressed on my chest for over 25 years. I opened to the first page. Written on it was my mother's familiar, elegant handwriting. September 2010. Little Wei started college. Gave him living expenses for the first time, 2,000 RMB. Hope my son becomes a dragon. I didn't read any further. I closed the notebook and clutched it tightly to my chest. Let's go. We headed back the way we came, without leaving any trace behind. Back in the car, my father-in-law looked at the notebook in my hand and let out a long sigh of relief. I started the engine, and the car left that place, which contained all my gray memories. In the rearview mirror, that old building gradually faded into the distance. I didn't take the notebook straight to confront my mother. A confrontation like that would only turn into a loud screaming match and crying, which was completely meaningless. What I needed wasn't her repentance. What I needed was the justice of the law and everything that we rightfully deserved. The next day, I hired the best lawyer. I handed over all the evidence, the audio recordings, the bank statements, as well as that fatal notebook to him. After reviewing all the documents, the lawyer said only one sentence: "Mr. Li, we are guaranteed to win this lawsuit." A week later, my mother and Li Wei simultaneously received a court summons and a lawyer's letter. Attached to that letter were copies of a few of the most crucial pages from that notebook. Those lines in black and white, along with the familiar handwriting, were ironclad evidence that could not be denied. I didn't know what their faces looked like when they saw these things. I only knew that afternoon. I received countless calls from relatives. Some tried to mediate, some criticized me, and some expressed heartache and regret. I didn't pick up for anyone. I only sent grandfather a single text message. Judgment day has come. Before going to court, we had a mediation session. The location was at the meeting room of the law firm. Zhou Yuk, my lawyer, and I sat on one side, while my mother, my father, Li Wei, and their lawyer sat on the other side. After that clan judgment session back then, this was the first time we met again. My mother looked as if her spirit had been drained, aging 10 years in her eyes. There was no longer the shrill calculation of the past, leaving only fear and deep resentment. Li Wei kept his head bowed the entire time, not daring to give me a single glance. My father, a man who had always been silent, was now smoking non-stop, his face full of sorrow. The mediation began. My lawyer presented our demands calmly and professionally. First, we demand the defendants, Mrs. Liu, Mai, and Mr. Li Wei, immediately return the unlawfully misappropriated funds, totaling 1,368,000 RMB. Second, we demand the defendants, regarding the disruption of public order at the plaintiff's company, as well as the making of harassing phone calls to Ms. Zhou Yu and her family, which damaged the reputation of others, must issue a public written apology. If you cannot meet the above two conditions, we will waive mediation and proceed straight to litigation. By then, what the defendants will face might no longer be just civil compensation, but also criminal liability. The two words criminal liability hit my mother's heart like a sledgehammer. She snapped her head up, screaming hysterically. I didn't. No, that's my son's money. What law did I break by spending my own son's money? Li Hao, you unfilial brat. Do you really want to throw your own birth mother into prison? Her lawyer embarrassedly tugged at the hem of her shirt, signaling for her to calm down. But she had completely lost control from beginning to end. I didn't even bother to give her a single glance, only speaking calmly to my lawyer. It looks like there's no need for mediation anymore. Having said that, I prepared to leave. My action threw my father into total panic. He firmly held my mother down, snuffed out the cigarette in his hand. We agree. His voice was completely hoarse, nearly shouting, we agree to the mediation. He looked at me, his eyes full of pleading. Little Hao, the money? Your mother and I will pay it back. We will sell the house. We just beg you not to let your mother... Don't let your mother... The remaining words could no longer be choked out. A grown man right in front of so many people had eyes welled up with tears. I stopped walking, not because I softened my heart, but because I felt an absolute sense of tragedy. If you knew this day would come, why did you behave like that before? My mother sat dazed on her chair, no longer crying or making a scene, looking as if she had accepted her fate, her gaze hollow. Li Wei buried his head even deeper. In the end, the mediation agreement was signed. They had to sell the house within 1 month to clear the debt, and they had to write a handwritten letter of apology addressed to me and Zhou Yue. After signing, we walked out of the law firm. The sunshine outside was beautiful. I looked at Zhou Yue beside me. She was also looking at me. Neither of us said anything, but we both knew that the days shrouded in absolute darkness had today come to a complete end. Our world had finally welcomed the dawn. 3 weeks later, my bank card received a massive sum of money, exactly 1,368,000 RMB. At the same time, an express parcel arrived. Inside were 2 letters of apology. One was written by my mother, and the other by Li Wei. The messy handwriting was filled with reluctance and resentment. I didn't bother to read them closely, tossing them straight into the trash can along with that ledger. Some things are better off left in the past. According to my father-in-law, they had already sold that old house. The house containing over 25 years of my memories had now welcomed its new owner. The family of 3 had moved to a small city very far away from here. Word had it that Li Wei was completely crushed by this and couldn't recover, while my mother seemed to have become a completely different person, washing her face with tears all day long. I no longer had any contact with them. Whether their lives were good or bad, no longer had anything to do with me. My own life also went through earth-shattering changes. I submitted my resignation at my old company. The environment there, because of my mother's scene, was no longer suitable for me. Used that sum of money, combined with the savings I accumulated over the years, to open a small design studio with Zhou Yue. We also moved right to the floor above our studio. A penthouse apartment that wasn't big but incredibly cozy, featuring a large terrace filled with flowers and plants. Zhu Yuk had completely transformed. She was no longer a silent woman who only knew how to swallow her grievances. She started learning how to paint, how to arrange flowers, and how to bake. She turned our home into a miniature fairy tale garden. A radiant smile was always on her lips, a happy and relieved smile that came from the very bottom of her heart. The business. of our studio also gradually got onto the right track. I was in charge of design, while she was in charge of operations and client communication. We became the most perfectly synced, dynamic duo and the most loving husband and wife. Every day we woke up together, had breakfast together, and went downstairs to work together. We even debated together over tiny startup ideas. When night fell, we went to pick out groceries together. She would link her arm in mine, and just over a 1 RMB difference, she'd haggle with the vegetable vendor for ages. That side of her was both lively and incredibly adorable. Arriving back home, we cooked together in the open-concept kitchen, the symphony of pots and pans, filled with the true flavor of family. We never ate dishes like stir-fried cabbage with vinegar and mapo tofu anymore. On our dining table, there were always dishes meticulously cooked by her own hands, steaming hot like braised pork belly and sweet and sour ribs. She always picked the biggest piece to put into my bowl, smiling and saying, "Eat up, eat more." That evening, after finishing dinner, we went out to the terrace together to stargaze. The night breeze was crisp, carrying the scent of plants and flowers. Zhou Yu leaned against my shoulder and suddenly asked Li Hao, "Do you regret it?" I froze slightly. Regret what? Regret marrying me? If it weren't for me, right now you'd probably still be a filial son and a good older brother in their eyes. I turned my head to look into her eyes beneath the starlight. Those eyes were as crystal clear as a spring lake. I shook my head, holding her a little tighter. I will never regret marrying you. I only regret not seeing through all of this sooner. I only regret making you suffer through so much humiliation and pain. Joya, I caressed her face, saying earnestly, "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for letting me understand what a real family actually is. Family isn't a shackle of blood relations, nor is it an unconditional, endless demand. Family is the mutual support between two people, the understanding and respect for each other through thick and thin. Family is this very moment, the time when you and I look up at this starry sky together." Zhou Yu smiled, crystal teardroplets glistening at the corners of her eyes. She proactively leaned forward, planting a soft kiss on my lips. "Me too. Thank you, my husband." In the distance, the city lights glowed brilliantly against the sky, and the stars twinkled gently. I knew that the canvas of a brand new life belonging solely to us had just unfolded its most beautiful chapters.